A delivery driver has 3 blocks to escape a murder scene before the killer realizes she saw everything. Or she crashes into the one man powerful enough to make her pursuer hesitate. Aaliyah Brooks is just trying to keep noodles hot and her head down in a city where survival means staying invisible. The rain-slicked streets blur past her scooter, delivery app pinging, tips barely covering her brother's latest mess. She's nobody, exactly how she needs it. But tonight, a wrong turn down a service alley puts her face to face with something she was never meant to see. A man in an expensive suit calmly slitting a concierge's throat while 2 others hold the body still. For one frozen second, their eyes meet. Park Sung-ho's smile is almost polite as he wipes the blade clean. Then his hand moves toward his jacket, and Aaliyah runs. 3 blocks. That's all the distance between her and the main avenue where witnesses and traffic might save her. Her thermal bag slams against her ribs, the smell of garlic and sesame oil mixing with her own terror. She can hear the SUV engine growling behind her, closing the gap with every heartbeat. No one would blame her for being another silent statistic in a city that eats the powerless. She is nobody. But as headlights flood the intersection ahead and a convoy of black cars materializes like a wall of steel, Aaliyah makes a desperate choice. She crashes her scooter directly into their path and does the one thing that might buy her 60 more seconds of life. She grabs the tattooed arm of the man stepping out of the lead vehicle and begs him not to let them take her. The man doesn't flinch when Aaliyah's scooter skids into his door panel. He simply looks down at her hand, small, trembling, dark against the ink crawling up his forearm, and his expression remains perfectly empty. Around them, car doors slam in synchronized precision. Men in black suits materialize, hands already moving beneath their jackets. Please. The word tears out of Aaliyah's throat. They're going to kill me. His eyes are cold, assessing her the way someone might examine a stray dog that's wandered into traffic. Behind her, the growl of Sung-ho's SUV grows louder, tires hissing against wet pavement. Red taillights paint the rain in streaks of blood. Let her go, Min-jae. Sung-ho's voice cuts through the downpour, smooth as the blade he used 5 minutes ago. He steps out of his vehicle with the unhurried confidence of a man who already knows how this ends. The girl saw something she shouldn't have. I'm simply cleaning up a mess. Min-jae's gaze shifts from Aaliyah to Sung-ho, and something dangerous flickers in his expression. Not concern, but calculation. His men have formed a loose semicircle, hands still hidden, waiting for an order that hasn't come. The air feels vacuum-sealed, pressure building in the space between the 2 groups. You're making a scene in my district, Min-jae says quietly. His voice carries despite the rain, despite the idling engines. I don't like scenes. Then hand her over, and there won't be one. Aaliyah's fingers dig deeper into Min-jae's sleeve, her nails catching on expensive fabric. She can feel the muscle beneath coiled tight, and realizes with sick certainty that he could shake her off as easily as brushing away a fly. He owes her nothing. She is nobody. But Min-jae doesn't move. What did she see? He asks, still watching Sung-ho with that empty expression. Nothing that concerns you. Everything in this district concerns me. Min-jae's hand, the one not trapped by Aaliyah's desperate grip, adjusts his cufflink with deliberate slowness. Especially when it brings armed men to my doorstep without permission. The silence stretches. Sung-ho's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. Aaliyah can see the calculation happening behind his eyes, weighing the cost of pushing this confrontation against the value of one witness. When he finally speaks, his smile has gone brittle. She's not worth this. Then leave her. Another pause. Then Sung-ho steps back toward his vehicle, movements controlled but radiating barely leashed violence. You're protecting a rat, Min-jae. Rats carry disease. Remember that when yours starts to spread. The SUVs pull away, red lights disappearing into the rain-soaked dark. Only then does Min-jae look down at Aaliyah again, and his expression hasn't warmed even a degree. Get in the car, he says flatly. We need to talk about what you're worth. The penthouse occupies the entire 42nd floor, and Aaliyah's wet sneakers leave dark prints across marble that probably costs more than her yearly rent. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcase the city like a kingdom laid out for inspection, lights glittering through the rain. Everything here whispers wealth so quietly it doesn't need to shout, the kind of money that erases problems before they become headlines. Min-jae shrugs off his jacket, revealing more ink beneath his dress shirt. Dragons coil up both arms, their scales rendered in meticulous detail. He hands the jacket to a silent woman in a gray suit who materializes from nowhere, then gestures vaguely toward a leather couch. Sit. Aaliyah doesn't move. Her delivery bag still hangs from one shoulder, thermal lining doing nothing to stop her shivering. I should go. Thank you for. You're not leaving. He says it the way someone might observe the weather. Matter of fact. Final. Sung-ho saw you with me. That makes you mine now, whether I want the liability or not. The words hit like a slap. I'm not anyone's. You stopped being your own the moment you grabbed my arm. Min-jae moves to a bar cart, pours 2 fingers of something amber into crystal glasses. Sung-ho won't touch you while you're under my protection. But the second you walk out that door, you're a loose end he'll tie off before sunrise. He holds out 1 glass. So sit down and tell me exactly what you saw. Aaliyah's legs finally give out. She sinks onto the couch, suddenly aware of how completely trapped she is. The penthouse might as well be a cell, luxurious, temperature-controlled, and utterly inescapable. Through the windows, she can see the district spreading below, every light representing someone who knows better than to challenge the man standing in front of her. He killed someone, she whispers. A concierge at the Meridian building. Just slit his throat like it was nothing. Min-jae's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his posture. Interest, maybe. Or confirmation of something he already suspected. The Meridian. That's city councilman territory. Sung-ho's moving faster than I thought. He takes a slow sip, watching her over the rim of his glass. What else? What else? He murdered someone. And you're the only witness. Min-jae sets down his drink with deliberate care. Which means you're either a problem or an asset. I haven't decided which yet. The casual brutality of it steals Aaliyah's breath. She fled one monster only to land in another's den. And this one wears expensive suits and speaks in boardroom language about her life like it's a negotiation. Min-jae moves to the window, silhouetted against the city lights, and she realizes with cold certainty that he's killed before too. The only difference is he's better at hiding the blood. Welcome to your new accommodations, Miss Brooks, he says without turning around. Try not to bleed on the furniture. Morning light cuts through the windows like an accusation. Aaliyah wakes on the leather couch, still in yesterday's damp clothes, her phone dead in her pocket. The penthouse is silent except for the distant hum of the city 42 floors below. For 3 blessed seconds, she thinks last night might have been a nightmare. Then Min-jae walks in with a manila folder, and reality crashes back. Your brother has expensive taste in poker tables. He drops the folder onto the glass coffee table. It lands with a sound too heavy for paper alone. Marcus Brooks, 26, owes $73,000 to the Hwan Group's gambling operation. Interest compounds weekly. He's 4 months behind. Aaliyah's stomach drops. She knew Marcus had debts, but not that kind of number. Not the kind that gets fingers broken in back alleys. How do you? I bought his debt last night. Made some calls while you were sleeping. Min-jae sits across from her, perfectly pressed despite the early hour, not a crease in his shirt. Cost me $85,000, counting the penalties they'd already added. Consider it an investment in your cooperation. The words don't make sense at first. Then they do, and Aaliyah feels something cold settle in her chest. You what? I own what your brother owes. Which means I own the consequences if he doesn't pay. Min-jae's expression remains neutral, a mask that reveals nothing. And since you're the only Brooks with anything valuable to offer, I'm restructuring the terms. Your brother's debt is forgiven the moment you help me put Sung-ho in the ground. Aaliyah can't find words big enough for the rage building in her throat. You can't just buy people. I didn't buy a person. I bought leverage. He leans forward, elbows on his knees, and for the first time his voice carries something other than cold calculation. Edge of steel beneath silk. Sung-ho killed a city official in my district without permission. That's a declaration of war, and you're the only witness who can testify if I need legal cover for what comes next. So yes, Miss Brooks, I can and did buy your cooperation. Your brother lives debt-free, you stay breathing, and I get the ammunition to end a problem that's been festering for months. Aaliyah wants to scream, to throw the folder back in his face, but the numbers stare up at her from the open page. Marcus's signature, messy and desperate. The Hwan Group's stamp. And now, clipped on top, a transfer receipt with Min-jae's name in clean typeface. How long? Her voice comes out raw. Until it's done. Min-jae stands, adjusting his cuffs with the same careful precision he applies to everything. Could be days. Could be months. Depends how smart Sung-ho plays this. He walks toward the hallway, pausing at the threshold. Breakfast is in the kitchen. Eat. You look like hell, and I need you functional. The gun feels wrong in Aaliyah's hand. Too heavy, too cold, too real. Min-jae adjusts her grip with clinical precision, his fingers wrapped around hers, repositioning her thumb along the frame. They're in a basement range beneath the building, the kind of place that doesn't officially exist on any floor plan. You're tensing. His voice is close to her ear, flat and instructive. Breathe out when you squeeze. Don't pull, don't jerk. Just steady pressure until it surprises you. I don't want to shoot anyone. Sung-ho's men won't care what you want. Min-jae steps back, arms crossed, watching her stance with the same empty assessment he applies to everything. You grabbed my arm and made yourself part of this war. Now you learn to survive it, or you become a liability I can't afford to keep. The target downrange is a simple paper silhouette. Aaliyah closes her eyes, exhales, and squeezes. The recoil jolts through her wrists, and the shot goes wide, punching into concrete somewhere left of anything important. Again. They go through 2 magazines before she manages to hit center mass. Min-jae doesn't praise her, just nods once and moves to the next lesson. How to identify armed men in a crowd, how to read exit routes in any room, how to recognize the moment before violence becomes inevitable. He teaches her the same way someone might explain a corporate merger, with detached efficiency and no wasted words. But something shifts on the 3rd day. Aaliyah is practicing a disarm technique, her movements clumsy and desperate, when Min-jae catches her wrist mid-swing. For a moment they're frozen, her pulse hammering against his fingers, his tattoos dark against her skin. His expression finally cracks, something almost like approval flickering across his features. Better. You're starting to commit instead of hesitate. His grip loosens but doesn't release. In this world, hesitation is just dying slowly. In your world, Aaliyah corrects, trying to pull away. He doesn't let go. It's your world now too. You just didn't realize the rent was this high. There's something dangerous in his eyes now, a darkness that matches the ink crawling up his arms. Sung-ho will come for you eventually. When he does, I need to know you won't freeze. Why? The question escapes before she can stop it. Why does it matter if some delivery girl lives or dies? Min-jae's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. For 3 seconds he doesn't answer, and Aaliyah becomes acutely aware of how close they're standing. How the basement's fluorescent lights cast shadows across his face that make him look almost human. Because, he finally says, releasing her wrist, I don't lose assets once I've invested in them. But the way he turns away suggests the answer isn't quite that simple. And the weight in Aaliyah's chest tells her she's not sure she wants to know what the real reason might be. The alarm doesn't scream, it whispers. A soft chime from Min-jae's phone at 3 in the morning, followed by the woman in the gray suit appearing in Aaliyah's doorway with a gun already drawn. They're in the building, she says quietly. Service elevator. For men. Min-jae emerges from his room already dressed, sliding a pistol into his waistband with practiced ease. His face is empty again, all that fleeting humanity from the basement gone like it never existed. How long? 2 minutes. Maybe less. Aaliyah's heart hammers against her ribs. 2 minutes. The penthouse has security, cameras, armed guards, but Sung-ho's men are already inside, which means someone got bought or someone got careless, and now the gilded cage is just a trap with expensive furniture. The panic room, the woman starts. Won't hold if they brought cutting tools. Min-jae's eyes sweep the space, calculating angles and exits that don't exist 42 floors up. His jaw tightens. We're boxed in. No. Aaliyah's voice cuts through the tension. We're not. Both of them turn to look at her. She's wearing an old t-shirt and borrowed sweatpants, hardly dressed for survival, but her mind is racing through a blueprint only she can see. 3 years delivering food to every luxury building in this district taught her something Min-jae's money can't buy. The invisible architecture that keeps places like this running. The service corridors, she says quickly. Behind the kitchen. Maintenance access for HVAC and plumbing. They connect every 5 floors down to the loading docks. Min-jae's expression shifts, not quite surprise but recalculation. Show me. They move fast. Aaliyah leads them through the kitchen to a panel that looks like part of the wall, her fingers finding the maintenance latch from muscle memory. Behind it, a narrow corridor lit by emergency lighting stretches into concrete darkness. The temperature drops immediately, all that penthouse's luxury stripped away to reveal the building's skeleton. The muffled crack of gunfire echoes from the main room. Glass shattering. Voices shouting in Korean. Go. Min-jae pushes Aaliyah forward, positioning himself between her and the entrance. The woman in gray moves with them, weapon raised, scanning angles Aaliyah can't even see. They descend through 5 floors of cramped maintenance shafts, Aaliyah navigating by instinct while gunfire and footsteps chase them from above. At the 37th floor, she hears voices in the corridor ahead, Sung-ho's men, cutting off the obvious exits. But Aaliyah knows these spaces. She veers left through a duct access, then down a ladder marked, authorized personnel only, leading them through the building's hidden circulatory system like blood flowing away from a wound. When they finally emerge in the loading dock, rain still falling outside, Min-jae looks at her differently. Not like an asset anymore. Like someone who just saved his life. "Where did you learn that?" he asks quietly. "Delivering noodles," Aaliyah answers, still shaking. Turns out being invisible has advantages. They regroup in a safe house across the river, a nondescript apartment above a closed laundromat where the walls still smell like detergent and old cigarettes. Min-jae makes calls in clipped Korean while the woman in gray, whose name, Aaliyah finally learns, is Yoon, secures the perimeter. Aaliyah sits on a worn couch, adrenaline finally draining, leaving her hollow. She's searching for her brother's number on her phone when she notices the photograph. It's half hidden beneath newspapers on the coffee table, edges yellowed with age. 2 young men stand outside a restaurant, arms slung around each other's shoulders, smiling like the world belongs to them. One has familiar ink crawling up his forearm, years before the dragons were fully rendered. The other has Sung-ho's sharp features, softer somehow, unweathered by whatever turned him into the man who kills without hesitation. That was a long time ago. Min-jae's voice makes her jump. He's standing in the doorway, phone dark in his hand, staring at the photograph like it might bite him. "You were friends." Aaliyah can't quite process it. "You and Sung-ho. Partners." Min-jae moves to the window, jaw working like he's chewing words he doesn't want to swallow. "We built the district together. Split territory, split profits, kept the peace. For 7 years, it worked. What happened?" The silence stretches long enough that Aaliyah thinks he won't answer. Then Min-jae exhales slowly, something cracking in that carefully maintained armor. "My sister." His voice drops to something barely above a whisper. Ji-won. She was 19, studying architecture, stayed out of the business. Smart girl. Kind. He pauses, fingers curling against the windowsill. Sung-ho's ambition got bigger than our arrangement. He made a deal with a cartel I'd explicitly refused. When I confronted him, he promised it wouldn't touch our people. 3 weeks later, Ji-won was caught in crossfire meant for me. Retaliation for Sung-ho's mess. Aaliyah's chest tightens. The coldness makes sense now, not cruelty, but scar tissue built over grief. He didn't pull the trigger, Min-jae continues, but he loaded the gun. Set everything in motion. And when I demanded he make it right, he told me she was acceptable collateral for the profit margins. The words come out flat, rehearsed, like he's told himself this story enough times to drain it of emotion. So I took his territory. His contacts. Everything we built together. That's when the war started. He finally turns from the window, and his eyes are empty again. But now Aaliyah understands that emptiness is a choice, not a default. A wall he constructed brick by brick to survive his own rage. That's why he needs me dead, Aaliyah says slowly. Not just because I'm a witness. Because I'm yours. Another way to hurt you. Yes. Min-jae's expression doesn't change. Which is why we end this before he takes anyone else I've invested in. The word choice is deliberate, clinical. But Aaliyah heard the crack in his voice when he said his sister's name, and she knows now what lives beneath the ice. The plan comes to Aaliyah at 4 a.m, while Min-jae strategizes with Yoon in the kitchen. Their voices a low murmur of contingencies and body counts. She's been listening for an hour, watching them map out a war that could drag on for months, burning through resources and lives until one side collapses from sheer attrition. There's a faster way. A worse way. But faster. Use me. The words cut through their conversation like a blade through silk. Min-jae turns slowly, one eyebrow raised. Excuse me? Aaliyah stands, forcing her voice steady despite the terror clawing up her throat. Sung-ho wants me dead because I'm a witness. But more than that, he wants to hurt you. So let him think he can. She moves to the table, planting her hands on the scattered maps and photographs. I reach out. Tell him I'll testify that I saw nothing if he clears my brother's old debts and lets me disappear. Make him think I'm betraying you to save myself. Absolutely not. Min-jae's response is immediate, flat with finality. Why? Because I'm an asset you've invested in. The words come out sharper than intended, but Aaliyah doesn't take them back. You said it yourself, I'm leverage. So let me be leverage. Draw him out somewhere you control, somewhere he thinks he's winning, and end this. Yoon looks between them, expression unreadable. She's not wrong. Sung-ho's paranoid. He won't surface for anything less than total victory. But a broken witness willing to deal? That's bait he might actually take. She has 3 weeks of training. Min-jae's jaw tightens, the only crack in his composure. Sung-ho will see through it in seconds, and then she's just dead. Then teach me better. Aaliyah leans forward, meeting his eyes with something she didn't know she still had, defiance instead of desperation. You spent 2 weeks showing me how to survive. Show me how to lie convincingly enough to make a monster think he's already won. The silence stretches. Min-jae studies her the way he did that first night in the rain, weighing variables and calculating outcomes. But this time, Aaliyah sees something else in his expression, reluctance, maybe even concern, quickly smothered beneath that familiar emptiness. If this goes wrong, then my brother's debt is cleared anyway, and you find another way to get to Sung-ho. Aaliyah keeps her voice level. But if it works, you end a war that's already cost you your sister. I'd say that's worth the risk of one delivery driver. Min-jae's fingers drum once against the table, a rare tell of agitation. Finally, he exhales slowly, surrender wrapped in steel. Fine. But we do this my way, on my timeline, in a location where I control every exit. His eyes don't leave hers. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Aaliyah nods, ignoring the way her hands have started shaking again. Understood. The shipyard smells like rust and ocean rot, shipping containers stacked like a steel maze under sodium lights that barely penetrate the fog. Aaliyah stands in the center of a cleared space, wearing a wire so thin she can barely feel it against her skin, and tries to remember how to breathe. Min-jae is positioned 3 containers north with a rifle. Yoon has the south exit. For more of his people scattered through the stacks, covering angles that were rehearsed a dozen times in the safe house. The plan is simple. Aaliyah delivers her performance, Sung-ho takes the bait, and Min-jae ends 7 years of war with a single clean shot. Simple. Until Sung-ho arrives with 12 men instead of 4. Miss Brooks. Sung-ho emerges from the shadows like smoke given form, that same polite smile from the alley fixed in place. You've been difficult to reach. Aaliyah forces her voice steady, remembering Min-jae's coaching. Show fear, but not too much. Desperation, but calculated. I want out. That's all. You clear my brother's debts, I testify I saw nothing, and I disappear. And betray the man who's been keeping you in his gilded cage? Sung-ho circles her slowly, predatory. That seems remarkably disloyal. He's not protecting me. He's using me. The words taste like truth because they were once. I don't owe him anything. Sung-ho stops, head tilting. For 3 seconds his smile doesn't waver, and Aaliyah thinks the performance worked. Then his expression shifts into something colder. You're wearing a wire. He says it conversationally, almost amused. And Min-jae's man on the south container has been in position for 6 minutes. Did you think I wouldn't scout the location first? Everything happens too fast. Sung-ho's men open fire on Min-jae's positions simultaneously. The container behind Aaliyah explodes in sparks as bullets tear through corrugated steel. She drops, rolling behind cover like Min-jae taught her, her hand finding the gun hidden at her back. Through the chaos, she hears Min-jae's voice crackling in her earpiece. North exit now. But the north exit is painted in muzzle flashes, and Yoon's position has gone silent. Aaliyah's training takes over. Identify threats, find cover, move with purpose instead of panic. She fires twice at a silhouette closing in from the left. One shot goes wide. The other doesn't. The man drops and Aaliyah's stomach lurches, but there's no time for horror. She runs through the maze of containers, gunfire echoing off steel, fog turning every shadow into a potential threat. A figure rounds the corner ahead. She almost shoots before recognizing Min-jae's tattoos. Blood streaks his shoulder, dark against his shirt. Yoon, she gasps. Down. Not dead. His face is granite, rage burning beneath. Sung-ho. Retreating east. Min-jae's jaw clenches. Then he presses his gun into Aaliyah's free hand, the weight of it terrifyingly familiar now. Stay behind me. And Brooks. His eyes meet hers, carrying something that might be regret. Don't hesitate. They find Sung-ho trapped between containers and the water's edge, his remaining men scattered or dead, fog curling around his expensive shoes like reaching fingers. He's still smiling when Min-jae steps into view, but it's fractured now, a mask with cracks showing through. You always were sentimental, Sung-ho says, breathing hard. Keeping the girl alive this long. Ji-won made you soft too, remember? That's why she. Min-jae fires once. The shot takes Sung-ho in the knee, folding him against the container with a scream that echoes across the water. Not a killing shot. Something slower. You don't get to say her name. Min-jae's voice is still empty, but his hand is steady, the gun now aimed at Sung-ho's chest. Not tonight. Not ever again. Aaliyah watches from 3 steps back, both guns still gripped in her shaking hands. She should feel something, horror, maybe, or vindication. Instead, she just feels tired, hollowed out by adrenaline crash and the weight of the choice she made weeks ago when she grabbed a stranger's arm in the rain. Do it, Sung-ho rasps, blood spreading dark beneath him. You've already won. Finish it like you should have 7 years ago. Min-jae's finger tightens on the trigger, then stops. He glances back at Aaliyah, something complicated crossing his features. This is the world you chose. The one where debts get paid in blood and witnesses don't walk away clean. His voice isn't quite as empty anymore. Last chance to go back to delivering noodles, Brooks. Say the word and I'll give you money, a new city, a clean slate. Your brother's debt is already cleared. Aaliyah looks at Sung-ho bleeding against rusted steel. At Min-jae standing between her and the monster who would have killed her without a second thought. At her own hands, still holding weapons she now knows how to use. She thinks about 3 blocks of running, about marble floors and basement ranges, about service corridors and her brother's messy signature on debt papers that don't exist anymore. About the girl who just wanted to stay invisible and the woman who learned that invisibility is just another cage. No. She steps forward, moving to stand beside Min-jae instead of behind him. Equal footing. I'm done running. Min-jae studies her for a long moment, and something almost like pride flickers in his expression. He lowers his gun slightly, letting the choice become hers. Aaliyah doesn't hesitate. The shot rings out across the water, final and clean, and Sung-ho's smile disappears into fog and silence. When she lowers the weapon, Min-jae's hand finds her shoulder, not possessive but steadying, anchoring her to a decision that can't be undone. Welcome to the throne, Miss Brooks, he says quietly. Try not to let it break you. Aaliyah looks out at the city lights bleeding through the fog, at a district that just changed hands with a single trigger pull, and realizes she's not sure she isn't already broken. But she's not running anymore. And that's enough.